I literally don't even know where to start, but I'm probably going to start with the most traumatic, which my adopted dad, like, that was the most traumatic. And get this, listen. Okay, so when he came over to my apartment to tell me that day. He, like, rang me up and he called me and he's like, hey, can I, like, come over and talk to you? And I was like, okay, sure. Had a gut feeling. Think that I'm crazy? Swear to God. Had a gut feeling. Get off the phone with him. I'm anticipating his arrival. I'm, like, peeping through the blinds. I have this gut feeling. I'm sick to my stomach. Then I hear, I go sit down. Hear the car door slam. Go look out the window. See him walking up. I know what the fuck he's going to say. I know what he's going to say. And you're like, oh, Laura, how'd you know what he was going to say? Because he did weird shit my entire life. And I gaslit myself into thinking that maybe it wasn't weird because I didn't have a dad, so I didn't know what that relationship was really like. Okay, so I lived on the second story. He had to walk up 2 flights of stairs, knocked on my door. I'm sweating. Like, my anxiety, like, is so bad. I let him in. He sits down on one couch. Well, he's pacing a little bit, sits down on one couch. I'm sitting down on the other couch. And he's crying. And to think of, my adopted dad was born in the 60s. He was a country guy. He was like, you know how guys from the 60s are, how old dudes from the 60s are. So, like, I think I maybe saw him cry, like, once ever. So I thought he was having a mental breakdown, and he couldn't even speak. And I was like, say it. I was like, just say it. Say what you're going to say. Like, almost coercing it out of him because I was afraid that he wasn't going to say it, and I wanted to know what he was going to fucking say. I really should have recorded it, but so he says, Laura, I'm in love with you. Look at me dead in the eyes with tears rolling down his fucking face. Knowing me, literally, I'm gonna have to show a picture of me whenever I was 6 years old, but I was like, he's known me since I was like as tall as my fucking knee. He's like, Laura, I'm in love with you. And I was like, oh, I love you too. And he's like, no, I mean, I'm in love with you. Like, I would love to marry you. I'm telling you, I'm freaking the fuck out in here. But it is also giving me clarification on everything that has happened throughout my time knowing him since I was 6 years old. I blacked out after that. I fucking blacked the fuck out. I remember him asking me, because I lived like 5 or 6 blocks away from my childhood home that I grew up in. Fuck. I remember him asking me to dinner because it was the weekend. They were a horrible family, but one thing that they generally did was like Sunday dinners or whatever. So he asked me to dinner. And I'm sure I said, like, yeah, or something like that. And then he walked out of my house, and I locked every fucking lock on that door. And I went into my fucking bedroom, and I locked that door, and I hid under my blankets, and I fucking sobbed my eyes out. I was, like, hyperventilating. I was, like, freaking out. I was in there for over an hour before I was able to, like, do anything else than that. And I texted my sister. At the time, I was married to a man. But anyway, I texted my ex-husband, and I was like, you're not gonna believe this. If you don't believe this, I'm gonna fucking leave you because this is fucked up. So I texted him everything, and before I gave him a chance to even read it or respond, I was like, no, fuck this. I need to talk to somebody. So I call him, and I tell him every single fucking detail. Mind you, my ex-husband was not a good man either. That's another story. An equally as traumatizing story. But anyway, I was on the phone with him, and he was just like, he's like, Laura, you must be confused. Like, imagine a man sticking up for another fucked up man. But he's like, Laura, you have to be confused. There's got to be some... And he knows my history with these people and my adopted dad. But he's literally like, no, you're confused. There's no way. I hang up on him. I call the most important person in my world, which is my little sister. And I tell her, and she's freaking the fuck out too, because she has fucked up experiences. Okay, so where did I leave off? Okay, so had told my little sister, we had a long conversation about what we should do, because we assumed that if we told my adopted mom that she wouldn't believe us. We had told her about multiple incidences during our teenage years and childhood, and she didn't really believe us. One time she kind of did, but then she sat us down in the kitchen with them and she's like, this is what the girl said you did. Are you doing this? He's saying no, that we're mistaken, that we're wrong, that it wasn't intentional, da 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 da. And that was like the end of it. But the fact that she set us down in a room with him, we were scared shitless. Like, it was hard for us to, like, muster up the courage to, like, talk about it with her, let alone, like, in front of him, you know? So, in the end, we settled on telling her despite our reservations. We just didn't know how she was going to handle it. So, I called her and I let her know that I wanted to come over and talk to her, but I asked her if she would come to the back porch and be quiet. Like, our back porch was off our kitchen. It was like an indoor back. It's where our laundry room was, but a lot of important conversations were had out there. But so we get there, she is already waiting for us, and she's like, what do you guys want to talk about? And I just spill it. I'm like, this is what happened. He called me. I ran through everything that I literally just told you guys. And she acted shocked. She seemed shocked. And she was pretty upset by the information. She said that she didn't act like she didn't believe me, which is crazy because she didn't believe me for a second of my fucking life. Generally, she wasn't a very nice or kind woman, so I was fucking stunned that she did anyway. And she kept saying that she can't believe she didn't see the signs because she was a victim of child SA. She was, which is also not my story to tell, but and so she told us that she thought that we needed to leave, that she had to have a conversation with him, and they fought like crazy, like our whole childhood, and we just knew that it wasn't going to be good. So we excused ourselves. She said that she didn't act like she didn't believe me, which is crazy because she didn't believe me for a second of my fucking life. Generally, she wasn't a very nice or kind woman, so I was fucking stunned that she did anyway. And she kept saying that she can't believe she didn't see the signs because she was a victim of child SA. She was, which is also not my story to tell, but and so she told us that she thought that we needed to leave, that she had to have a conversation with him, and they fought like crazy, like our whole childhood, and we just knew that it wasn't going to be good. So we excused ourselves. She ended up calling me the following day and saying that it's done. Like, she kicked him out, like, he's gone. And I'm like, where did he go? And she said, like, I don't fucking know, probably to Georgia, because that's where his family's from. He didn't actually have any family in the state that we lived in. All his brothers and sisters lived in a really small town in Georgia. So that's where he went to. And I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked by her doing that. She never, like, she did not protect us from anything our entire lives, no matter if we spoke up or not. And she actually was just as much of an abuser as he was. Like, the stories I have about her are just as crazy and just as wild. Honestly, I feel like I handled that whole situation really well, but like a week after it, I wasn't handling it very well. I was actually felt like I was like spiraling, and I was like full of anxiety, and I just wasn't doing good. So the phone calls that she was making to me, I wasn't answering. I wasn't answering the text messages, and she thought that she kept saying, are you blaming me? Do you blame me? Do you blame me? And yeah, I did. Like, she lived with that man, I don't know, 20, 30 years. She knew how fucking weird he was. She convinced him to shave our hair off my sophomore year, my little sister's senior year, to make us less attractive. Less attractive to a grown man. So back to what I was saying, I wasn't answering phone calls and texts. I think I went over there once, and like I was there for a few hours, and the entire time we were talking about that situation, and I just didn't want to talk about it. So I just really wasn't talking to her that much. Well, when everything kind of settled back down, I have no perception of time, but I want to say 3-4 weeks later, I was ready to talk. I was ready to have a full-blown conversation. So, my sister and I called, and our phone number was disconnected. The number that we use for, like, our Kroger and, like, Speedway pin, it was disconnected, and it hadn't been since the 90s, so we were a little bit freaking out. We didn't know what was going on. So we got in the car, we drove 5 blocks from where I lived, and we saw a U-Haul. When we saw the U-Haul, we could only speculate what was going on, honestly. I literally didn't know what was going on. I thought, oh, maybe my adopted dad is coming back to get all of his things, since he left in such a hurry. So that's what was going on in our head. Drove back home. We drive back like a week later, and the house was completely empty. No cars outside. There was a pole barn in the backyard that was like packed to the brim of stuff, because they were practically hoarders. They literally never threw anything away. So it was stacked up to the ceiling. So the door was open, nothing inside. So we like park, we get out, we're looking through the windows. It's spotless. There's nothing in there. There's nothing in there at all. So after a little digging on my adopted dad's siblings' Facebook, we found out that they packed up our entire childhood home, took my little brother and my nieces and nephews, who I helped raise, and they dipped out of the state that we were living in and took off 15 hours away. Bought a campground, bought a compound, and that's where they resided, and that's where they continue to reside. Not my adopted mom, because she passed away in July. But yeah, took my little brother that I also helped raise, and I haven't spoken to him again since I was 21. So I figured I would do a follow-up video, and before I really get started answering questions, there is a woman following me from every video on every social media saying that I'm lying on the internet, and saying that I was reading from a script. One, I have anxiety. I also keep seeing people like, oh, she looks like a pretty girl. She doesn't seem like has went through any of that stuff. I have anxiety. I don't want to sit here and just stare at myself. I'm just looking down. And those other videos, I was just looking down. But this time, I wrote some stuff down because the amount of people that care, and also the amount of people asking questions, is crazy. Never did I expect anybody to give a shit, because nobody ever has. I've also seen a lot of people complaining about the way that I talk. Unfortunately, that's not anything that I could help. One thing that my adopted mom did whenever I was younger was get mad when you did not speak proper American English. So if I said, my high school principal's name was Mr. Linton, but if I came home telling a story about him and I said Linton, I would get in trouble. Like, serious punishment for grammar and the way that I talked. So I talk this way. I don't know what to say about that. And one more thing, I have seen nothing but women and girls in the comments saying that they can relate, saying my story is so eerily similar to their story. And one, that's tough. That's so tough, because I really thought that I was the only one. I'm sure my little sister thought that she was the only one experiencing the things that she was. And I'm so sorry. I cannot comment back to all of the comments that I'm being received by these girls and women, but I am truly sorry. Unfortunately, we are all part of this club, and if I could be in it by myself, knowing that no other woman or girl ever experienced the things that I have, then I would take that hit. So let's just go on with the first thing. So this happened 10 years ago. I was 21. I'm 31 now. Everybody that is giving me a hard time online about me telling this story, like it's some like juicy gossip or whatever, I'm so far removed from that 21-year-old girl that I was. From the age of 6 to 21, I'm so far removed from that person. When I talk about these past experiences, it's like it almost happened to another person. I know that it's not, because I still get triggered by some of the simplest of things. And then other times I see things that it just makes me feel a certain way, but I don't have any memories attached to it. So if you think I am super strong, it took a long time to get to this place. Now, to explain, people keep getting confused about the adopted dad thing. So 2 days before my 6th birthday, I was put into foster care. My little sister was already 6 because we are Irish twins. We have 2 younger brothers. And my youngest brother was 6 months old whenever we got put into foster care. We never really had any other foster parents. These people were basically it. We had respite care, if you know what respite care is. So if they ever left the state of Indiana while we were in foster care, we couldn't go. So we had some good respite care families. I'm still very close to one of them to this day. So when I was 10, we were adopted by these people. So at 10 years old, we legally became their children by law through the state. And then a lot of questions are about my little brother. He wasn't an adult at the time that this happened, but he is legally an adult now. I don't think, I can't figure out how to explain it to you to where you with a person that had a regular life is gonna understand it. They kept us under their thumb. They wouldn't allow us to get jobs, cell phone, driver's license, anything like that, so that they could have control over us. Originally, it was a lot about money. I don't know if they get money for him now, probably my adopted dad's Social Security or something like that. But, so from the age of 6 months old until his current age right now, he has known no other life. Stockholm Syndrome is very, very real. I reference Stockholm Syndrome because it is very, very real as somebody that has experienced it, because I went back to my adopted parents. I allowed them back into my life twice. The incident when I was 21 being the last time. But the reason why I referenced it is my little brother has known no other life. I cannot, it's been 10 years. I don't even know what those people were telling him. If we abandoned him, if we didn't care about him, which is not the case at all. Instead of being a kid, when I was a little kid, I was taking care of my brothers and sisters. I love that kid to death. If I thought that I could go get him safely And also without seeing my adopted dad, because I can't see him. Like, I'm afraid of him. I can't see him. I would absolutely go steal him back in a heartbeat. The next question was about my nieces and nephew. They are my adopted parents' biological grandchildren. My adopted parents had 2 daughters that were their biological kids, and their youngest daughter had 3 kids. She signed rights over to my adopted mom. They have a father. My adopted mom blocked his number the same time that they took off to Georgia and took my little brother, blocked his number, and he has not been able to speak or talk to his kids since then. Ever since she passed away, he thinks that he has a real shot of getting them back, and has got a lawyer to try to get them back. So as far as everybody's safety, I don't know. Like, there's no social media I can look on. There's no way of me knowing this information. Now, this part definitely needs a trigger warning, because it's going to talk about the weird stuff that my adopted dad did whenever I was younger. The reason why I was so hesitant to speak about it is because the only people that were asking were faceless, nameless profiles, and I don't want to give weird freaks online any, like, fuel for the weird stuff that's going on in their head. I'm going to try to be, how am I going to word this? I'm going to try to not say anything that is going to add fuel to, like, weirdo brains, because look, I'm literally shaking. My legs are shaking. I just know that there are pervs online, and I don't want them using like my story for anything like that. You know? Also, another reason why I was hesitant to talk about this stuff is the girl I like is on TikTok, and we haven't got to a place where we're talking about all this. So she's finding out about all this at the same time you guys are finding out about all this, and I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that. Okay, so trigger warning, because I am going to talk about the weird things that my adopted dad did whenever I was little. So when I was in middle school and whenever I was in high school, he used to make me stay home from school. I hated staying home from school. I loved school. It was my break from all the chaos that was in the house. Plus, I was good at it. But the first time, he said that he wanted me to stay home so I could help him remodel our bathroom, like fix the sink and stuff, which we never did. He would make me come into his bedroom while he laid on his bed, and I would have to rub his back, and you're like, that's not that weird. But he wouldn't allow me to sit next to him. I had to sit on his back with a leg on either side. And so imagine how long kids are in school. I had to do that the entire time. When I was 13, I got folliculitis right, like, here on my chest, just like mainly right here. And it was probably from like sweating out in the sun and then going to bed without showering, whatever. I was a kid. But so the doctor prescribed me some cream that I was supposed to put on it, and my adopted dad would not allow me to put the cream on myself. He specified that he had to do it to make sure it was done right, and then it wouldn't be out in the open. He would have us go into the bathroom, and so I would start rubbing it on. He would take over, and he literally made me take my bra off. He said it didn't matter because I didn't have boobies anyway. And when I tell you, he, like, this is where the folliculitis was. He rubbed my entire chest. That one, actually, it took me talking to my therapist to even realize that was SA, basically. After knowing all the information that we know now, and after he confessed that he loved me, looking back at picking apart everything that he did, it was all weird. On to the next thing. Okay, so in our bathroom, we had an unfinished bathroom. He was a carpenter. You know how carpenters are. Work, come home, start something, don't finish it. But in our bathroom, from the toilet, you could see, like, into the basement, there was a crack. Like, you know those metal, like, heater grates or whatever they are? There was a crack. And every single time we went to take a shower, he would be smoking a cigarette in the basement. He also would stand outside the bathroom door while we were in the shower. And we knew because the floor creaked, so we could hear. And then if you look under the door, you can see feet. Just like never knew what he was doing out there. Was just talking to my little brother. And he said that when he was 13, he caught him spying through the crack of the door while I was in the shower. Now, my brother was 13, so, like, in his mind, he literally didn't know either. But yeah. There came a point when we were in high school that every time we would wake up in the middle of the night, he was standing in our room. One time, he was standing in our room, and I woke up and asked him what he was doing, and he tried to offer me a snack cake. Other times, we would wake up in the middle of the night and he would literally just be laying in the bed. And I guess at the time, I don't know what I thought at the time, that he was just like a sad man. Like, I don't know what I thought at the time. He liked to wear boxers around the house, and you're like, whatever. He wore boxers around the house. Okay, so he wore boxers around the house, and he manspread everywhere he went. So we saw his entire junk on a regular basis. And, like, when somebody, when that stuff is out. There's a breeze. But also, if we would, like, see it, we would look away. He was looking at us, looking for our reaction. Like, you could see, I don't know how to explain it to you guys, and that incident that I told you that we talked to our adoptive mom about, that was it. Like, for some reason, I felt really strong to be able to talk to her about it, because enough was enough, and my little sister had said something about it, and I'm just very serious about my little sister. One thing about my adopted parents, they hated the fact that we were Black. They reminded us all the time. They made fun of our natural hair, our nose, our lips. We were not allowed to watch, like, BET. We weren't allowed to listen to, like, rap music, really. And yet we would wake up in the middle of the night and we would see from the dining room our adopted dad on his 70-inch TV watching, like, rap videos where, like, Black girls were shaking their butts. And then we would also wake up in the middle of the night, and on that 70-inch TV, we would see him watching interracial corn. Okay? Now, I don't know the specifics of what type of corn it was, other than it was interracial and the woman was Black. Everything that I just talked about, that's only 1% of the stuff that happened in that house. Like, I didn't touch on, we were literally slaves. Like, look up the definition of a slave. We were their slaves. On top of that, they abused us. They let their biological daughters abuse us. My adopted dad created paddles for fun to beat us with, and it didn't even matter, because if there was a metal spatula, they would use it. I did not think that I was going to make it out of that house. You see those documentaries on Netflix and you think, oh my gosh, why did nobody do anything? Nobody ever helped